Hello, welcome back again to yet another topic with me, Ansi Reggie, and here our usual face, Abraham Burgess.
Hello, how are you doing? Namaskaram.
And we would be discussing again a little bit of more few words, and that would be culture shock.
Culture shock. It's quite a fascinating word because what shocks you about another culture? Their ways of life, their behavior, their values, their belief systems, their educational systems, their transportation systems. All these things, for one who is looking at it for the first time, it is sometimes a bit of a culture shock. To see a new kind of people that you're not familiar with is another kind of culture shock. To try the food that they eat, which you're not familiar with, can also be another culture shock, right? So anything that is external to what your knowledge or experience or normal behavior is, can result in being a culture shock. But, one can say, well, you can easily get into it. That's a different issue. That's a different issue. You can easily get yourself adjusted to the food, to the clothing, to the way of life, to the language, etc. But when it hits you in the beginning, that is the shock. Okay? And to add to that also, that shock can reverberate for some time because you might take some time to actually get used to it. For example, let's take food. Yes, you get used to it, you're hungry, you eat it, you know there is nothing, no other alternative, and so you keep on eating what is given to you until at one time it becomes so familiar that you think that you can't do without it. Okay?
Sure.
So that is the net result of it most often. But the fact that it reverberates for some time is really the kind of shock that you experience from the cultural change that takes place. Okay? Now, when you get into an aircraft itself, flying off to a new country, the atmosphere, if that aircraft is from the country that you are flying to, you sense the atmosphere in that aircraft then itself, and you become partly aware of the cultural changes that you're likely to meet. Okay? But when you meet it, because at this stage you're thinking about it, but when you meet it, you think, oh my God, am I in the right place? Do they really behave this way? Do the children play out in the snow in this manner? Suddenly the weather has its own cultural shock also on you. So there are many formats like that I consider as culture shocks.
The next we have dogmatic belief.
Dogmatic belief, yes. Well, dogmatic belief is actually being very stubborn. You are saying, well, whatever happens, I believe in it. That means you're putting back reason, you're putting back objectivity, you're being very subjective, and you are insistent that what facts you hold are the only facts upon which you have reached a decision which you claim to be correct. Okay? Now that doesn't happen often because there are many things to challenge you also, which you may not have taken into account. But you're not open to it, and you behave in a dogmatic fashion. And as a result, you behave in that manner, and that people find really difficult to handle. And sometimes you might be left alone to continue your dogmatic ways. But most often, where people have a dogmatic character, others will try to socialize, others will try to adjust to them, amend their ways a little bit, to give that person the chance to also relax his mind to see whether it's really necessary for him to be so dogmatic, whether the views that he holds is actually carved in stone. Okay? So, yes, dogmatic views are all right. You have leaders with dogmatic views, You have scientists also with dogmatic views, which is quite rare because they normally are amenable to changes and the differences and variables in science. And I particularly mention science because people hold on to the views that they have been taught as being principles upon which the rest of physics or the rest of chemistry or whatever is founded. And it's unchallengeable. But believe you me, as time goes on, changes do occur, those principles go, those dogmatic views become irrelevant.
The next we have a quite misused word and misperceived word, that is cohabitation.
Cohabitation. Well, what is cohabitation, for God's sake? It is the living together of two consenting males or females, or male and female, people who are consenting and of age, obviously. And they are trying out life before committing themselves to it. And there is this very false perception that if you live with a girlfriend or a boyfriend and manage your lives together for a period of time, you will learn about each other. And so when you enter into a marriage with that same person, life will be hunky-dory. It is not the case. Because while you are boyfriend and girlfriend, you don't take each other for granted.
Point.
All right? You're all the time keen to please that person. You actively do something to please that person. And you do things in a coordinated manner, which gives the impression that everything is fine. And this is how things will go on in the future. And this is how our children will grow up in this kind of atmosphere. But believe you me, it is nothing at all like that. And this is why, for example, arranged marriages have also got their wonderful features, because once they are married, and that marriage is what binds them, they begin to learn about each other, which may take a good part of their lifetime. Okay? By which time they will also have children and so on. And so they'll have to adjust to that. Whereas if you are actually literally cohabiting without the commitment to get married, you are constantly living in a false atmosphere with false values.
Point.
And once you change that and say, would you like to marry me? Shall we get married? And you get married,
Things change.
things change. Because now
It's becoming serious.
yes, it's become not just serious. You take things for granted. Oh, well, it's my husband. He comes, he goes over there, has a drink or two and comes back. And, when you take things for granted, there comes a point of time where either one of the parties says, God, I'm fed up of this. She doesn't anymore wash or help me wash the dishes. I'm fed up of this. She keeps cooking the same thing day in, day out. And she keeps teaching the children to be more attached to her. I thought all this would change. But it doesn't. It only changes at that time when the commitment becomes real. At least some people believe in the eyes of God. Some people believe in the eyes of the law. But mainly, I think, in the eyes of society.
Point.
Okay? So, cohabitation is, while it's a wonderful present term in vogue, it is not something that is going to last, I don't think, for too long. And it's not anything new anyway. Cohabitation happened long time ago. And in fact, the exchange of men and women, polyandry and polygamy and everything else, was common in the old days. So, to think that coexistence, cohabitation is something that is new and that it has got certain valuable principles in it, I think rather misleading at this stage anyway of the analysis.
I think that makes them clear about the entire conversation we had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskaram.